One of the common problems with the 944 handles is that they no longer open from the outside, and there's part of the mechanism that can break off on the inside, and I'm going to show you what that is and how we can repair it. The part fails and this fractures and breaks off at this point. Fortunately, the repair part fits back in and you can then reconnect it. First step is to remove the door card. You can see here there's one screw just behind the handle. There are also screws along the base of the door pocket, two with the electric mirror switch and one just here, and also some clips behind the panel. So remove that and it will give you access to the window motor, and we can then move on to the next stage. Removing the door pocket, there's one final screw just in the corner here, which if you undo, it then allows you to lift off. And you can see here where the screws are on the template. Once all the screws are out, it's a case of lifting up the door card, and it then comes off, giving you access to everything you need within the door. There's a metal plate just here that you need to remove. You have one screw for it here and then two more in here that need to be removed, and that will then give you more access to the lock mechanism. One of the things that's often said is that you can repair the mechanism without having to remove the window glass, and it's just a simple case of getting your hand in and a lot of fiddling to actually get the ball joints reconnected. The reality is that on the early cars that may be true, but for later cars the window runner, the guide rail, which is here, is actually much wider and moved further over, which blocks all access. So unfortunately that means the only option is to remove the window glass so that you have access. To be able to get access to the door lock is to undo the window regulator motor. You don't need to remove all of the bolts, just enough to be able to pivot the motor so that the glass will come down inside the window. You can see in here the back of the lock mechanism, and what we're trying to do is to get access under here to the base of the guide channel, the black piece at the rear. To remove the regulator, there are 6 10mm bolts that need to be undone, which are on the back of the door. Once you've removed sufficient bolts to pivot the window regulator mechanism, you can drop it into the door cavity, which will then allow you to remove the door glass from the guide rail. This will then allow you to get access to the guide rail bolts, and you can then remove them so that you have access to the lock mechanism. At the bottom of the guide rail is a 7mm screw which needs to be undone. That's very easy to see. The one that's more difficult is at the top here. To access the bolt that's at the top, you have the rubber strip inside the guide rail, and you just need to move that out, and you'll see just in here that we have an 8mm brass headed screw, and once you remove that you can get the guide rail out completely. Once the guide rail is out, you can see how it's actually blocking the access, because all of this, with this now out of the way, you can see the adjustment at the back of the door handle here, and the brass section that allows you to open the door and the metal piece which holds the lock in place. When you turn the key, you can actually lock the door, and these are the pieces that you can't push on without sufficient access on the later vehicles. To push out this centre rod, and that then allows you to remove this piece. And lift that up, goes round there and fits in place. And you then need to just fit the pin back in. Gradually push the pin inside with a sharp screwdriver or similar implement, and that will then allow this to pivot correctly again. So now that's been replaced, you can see that the pivot works. We can now refit the handle to the car. And then the other way, and then turn it back in. Then just open the handle. Once you've refitted the lock mechanism, it's a case of repeating the steps in reverse. So refit the window guide rail, the 2 bolts, screws top and bottom to fit that in place. The metal plate that goes to the rear of the lock and the 3 screws that hold that in place. The window regulator needs to be resecured and the window glass fitted back into the guide rail channel. You can then put the door card back in place and secure that, and you should now have a fully working lock mechanism.